what a sensational view. And it's fairly typical of the sorts of views that you can access by four-wheel drive vehicles around Australia, one of the great countries for using a four-wheel drive vehicle recreationally, which is what we're doing here. Actually, we're producing a set of maps and route charts for the whole country for people to be able to use who would like to take a look at it in their four-wheel drive vehicle. And the more I'm out here, the more I realise just how much there is of it to see that's worthwhile, that you can't see other than by four-wheel drive vehicle. It just does access some fantastic areas. And there's one other thing I realise as well. A great many drivers out here in four-wheel drive vehicles are not quite sure of what they should be doing or how they should be doing it. It's not exactly like driving up and down the bitumen. There are some special techniques to be learned. And sometimes getting access to those techniques, learning those sorts of things is not so easy. But it will be from now on, and that's what this video is all about. And the guy who's responsible for the production of the video is Graham Maxwell. Graham, g'day.
How are you, Peter?
Mate, you've done a lot of four-wheel driving in Australia and in Papua New Guinea, and you also run some four-wheel drive courses. Why did you suddenly decide to produce the video?
Well, Peter, a couple of years ago when I set up the four-wheel drive courses that I was doing, there just wasn't anything available. Anything available to use as backup to the theory lessons that I was giving these people before I let them loose into the scrub.
So do you intend to teach everything about four-wheel driving?
All of the basic stuff, from the differences between the vehicles, right through to the basic recovery gear they should have.
Like climbing up steep tracks like this one?
Yeah, exactly.
In the right gears,
Yes.
at the right time?
Exactly.
With a bit of wheel slip? He's getting there, though. It's a hard road. Well, mate, good luck with it. I mean, let's get everybody doing it right. It's hard work and it deserves to be done properly.
I think that's essential. Some of the things that you've seen people do and I've seen people do is terrifying. It's a big country, it's a magnificent country, but you really need to be prepared properly to be able to do it right.
I couldn't agree more, Graham.
All right, let's make a start. The first thing we should notice is that the four-wheel drive stands taller and is heavier than its two-wheel drive counterpart. That will mean, of course, that the centre of gravity in the four-wheel drive is higher than that of the conventional vehicle. Now, because of these differences, there'll exist a need for you to make some adjustments to your driving techniques. In any motor vehicle, when the brakes are applied, but especially under hard braking, a weight transfer occurs from the rear to the front. That weight transfer can have a fairly dramatic effect on things like braking efficiency, steering, and overall handling. And with the additional weight in a four-wheel drive, it can be even more dramatic. It's important that you take the time to familiarise yourself with your particular vehicle's characteristics, because they will differ from make to make. In getting to know your vehicle, don't assume that because you've driven a two-wheel drive vehicle for a few years, you have all the experience you need. Quite simply, that is seldom the case, and complacency is a real danger. In case you're wondering why it is that your four-wheel drive sits higher than a conventional vehicle, that's because its suspension is designed that way specifically so as to gain the maximum ground clearance. Inside the two vehicles, although interiors are similar, in the four-wheel drive there exists one important difference: the inclusion of an additional gear lever. This is the transfer case select lever. It's usually located closer to the standard transmission gear lever and provides us with a means of changing from normal two-wheel drive, high range, used for highway driving, to four-wheel drive high range, for when better traction is required off-road, or, when the real serious work starts, to four-wheel drive low range. With changes between four-wheel drive high and four-wheel drive low range, there are also changes in gear ratios. These changes in drive modes and gear ratios are achieved by the inclusion of an additional gearbox, known as a transfer case, which is attached to the rear or output end of the main transmission. Let's take a look at the drive lines of the two vehicles. In the two-wheel drive vehicle you see here, we have the engine, the transmission assembly, a single drive shaft connected to the differential axle housing assembly at the rear. In the four-wheel drive, we have the engine, the transmission, And attached to the rear of the transmission is that transfer case we spoke of earlier. And it's at this point the real changes take place in the drive lines. We now have, for instance, a drive line coming from the rear of the transfer case, going back to the rear differential assembly. We now have also a second drive line going to the front differential assembly. And that basically is how four-wheel drive is achieved. It's important that you remember, though, unless your vehicle is of the constant four-wheel drive variety, even if you have engaged a four-wheel drive range with the transfer case lever, four-wheel drive will not be affected until such time as you have placed the freewheel hubs in position. That is, physically moved the hub to the lock position. Whilst we're on the subject of those freewheel hubs, let's talk about them a little more. Their function is to provide a means of connecting the front stub axle, to which the wheels are attached, with the drive coming from the front differential whenever a four-wheel drive range is selected. In addition to providing us with a means of connecting drive to the front axles, the hubs also provide us with a means of disconnecting that drive when four-wheel drive is not required, by moving the hub to the free position. This is done so as to avoid axle and transmission wind-up. If a four-wheel drive is used on a non-slip surface, such as bitumen, for distances in excess of 30 kilometres, wind-up will occur because these surfaces offer much greater traction. In many four-wheel drive vehicles today, the engagement and disengagement of freewheel hubs is done manually. In others, the task is done electronically whenever the transfer case lever is moved into or out of a four-wheel drive range. I believe it's a good practice whenever you venture off the blacktop to engage both four-wheel drive and your hubs. Chances are you'll need to sooner or later anyway, but apart from that, it offers much greater control and steering stability on loose surfaces. In addition, if you do need a quick change to low range, it's only a flick of a lever away. Preventative maintenance is the task that you should carry out to avoid unnecessary and costly repairs. Normally carried out at regular intervals, they should also be done before and after any four-wheel drive activity. They supplement normal servicing requirements, and the intervals that they should be done at are weekly, monthly, 6-monthly, and annually. The weekly tasks are checking the engine oil level. Apart from lubricating, oil also assists in cooling the engine. Checking the coolant level in the radiator. Low or no coolant can result in major engine failure. Checking the battery electrolyte level. A drop in electrolyte can lead to premature battery failure. Checking battery terminals for security, cleanliness, and general condition. Checking fan belts for condition and adjustment. Checking tyres for correct inflation and abnormal wear. The monthly tasks are check brake and clutch master cylinder fluid levels. They should be correct at all times. Check clutch operation. It's important that adjustment is correct to ensure full life. Check windscreen wiper and washer operation and refill the washer bottle. Check the operation of all lights and the condition of lenses. And on a quiet road, test your vehicle brakes to ensure that they are capable of bringing the vehicle to a safe, controlled stop. And don't forget to check your handbrake also. Your 6 monthly tasks include check the transmission, transfer case and differential oil levels and top up as necessary. Check the driveline for oil leaks. Early detection of this can save you thousands of dollars in repairs. Check radiator hoses for condition and security of fit. Check steering and suspension for wear and damage. Check shock absorbers for correct operation. They are important components because they assist in overall handling stability, particularly during braking and cornering. And finally, thoroughly clean the engine, engine bay and radiator core. The annual tasks, which are draining and flushing your braking system, draining and refilling your differential, transfer case and transmission, and having your automatic transmission serviced if your vehicle happens to have one fitted, are all tasks which you should have your mechanic carry out. You should also have your mechanic carry out a complete safety check of your vehicle, especially if you're planning an extended trip. You'll find that money well spent.
Show me a better way to live my life. Show me a better way to see this land.
Now it's time to look at the basic driving techniques you should adopt. Firstly, a couple of general hints. After any long run at high engine revs, it's a good practice to allow the engine to idle for a minute or so. This will allow the engine to normalise. This is critical if your engine is fitted with a turbocharger. Idling the engine, in this case, allows the turbo, which spins at extremely high revs per minute during operation, to slow down and cool down. Turbos receive their oil for lubrication and cooling from the engine, but only when it's running. Now the techniques. Before you commence any four-wheel drive activity, you should ensure that your driving position is correct. Make sure your seat is adjusted correctly so that all controls can be reached comfortably. Adjust rear view mirrors so that you have good all-round visibility. Better to know it's right at the start than to find out halfway through an obstacle you can't make that vital gear change. Four-wheel drives have come a long way in recent times. Until a few years ago, only the most expensive came with power steering as standard equipment. Without it, if the front wheels came off a ledge or struck an obstacle, the resulting impact was immediately transferred through the steering wheel, causing it to spin violently. If the driver had his thumbs inside the wheel rim, he usually sustained an injury. Although power steering virtually eliminates that problem today, it's still a good practice to place the thumbs outside the rim during four-wheel drive activities. In any four-wheel drive activity, control is of the utmost importance. One of the most difficult aspects of control is learning to use the brakes for maximum effect. You should practice bringing your vehicle to a stop by using light to medium brake applications. In doing so, you will enhance control. This is easily accomplished if you adjust your speed to suit conditions. Heavy or sudden brake applications will result in skidding, meaning a loss of traction. Remember, when you're back on the blacktop after any four-wheel drive activity, stop the vehicle, return the transfer case to two-wheel drive, high range, and the hubs to the free position. Since you're out of the vehicle anyway, make a check of the radiator grille area for debris, which may restrict the flow of air. Prevention is better than the cure. If you're travelling convoy style with other vehicles, be sure to keep a sufficient distance apart, particularly when negotiating rough ground, but especially during climbs and descents. Think safety.
Show me a better way to spend my days. Only a foolish man would complain.
Vehicle footprinting. That's the technique we four-wheel drivers use to place the wheels of our vehicle to maximum advantage. In other words, we place the wheels so that we retain maximum traction and gain maximum ground clearance over different types of terrain. You know that if you don't place your feet correctly when walking over rough ground, you'll lose your balance and fall. It's even more critical for your vehicle because it's a great deal heavier. Balance and stability are easily upset. If you don't place the wheels properly, you'll lose traction. If either the chassis or the differentials of the vehicle come into contact with the ground, you'll lose forward momentum. If you lose forward momentum or you lose traction, then you're in trouble. It may also result in damage to tyres, suspension, steering, or injury to passengers. Attention to detail is necessary when negotiating rough ground. That means picking your route so that ground clearance is maintained and all wheels remain in contact with the surface being negotiated. Simple things like running out of suspension travel or snagging the chassis on a log can cause your vehicle to lose traction or ground clearance, or both. It's something that requires constant attention all the time.
The windscreen is just a traveling picture show. Show me a better way to spend my day.
There can be no doubt that terrain appreciation is one of the finer skills that you, as a four-wheel driver, can possess. This involves you being able to accurately assess a piece of ground or an obstacle and being able to determine whether it's a go or a no-go situation. Is it safe to attempt, or should you find another path? Now, I wouldn't try this. It's too steep and it's too muddy. You should always err on the side of safety, and that should be paramount in your mind always. Make sure you can achieve the obstacle before you have a go at it. You can develop your terrain appreciation skills by obtaining quality maps for the area you intend visiting and checking track positions, gradients and the type of terrain you're going over. That'll be the best route. This track here is a little steep, so I think it'll give us a bit of trouble. Another aspect of developing terrain appreciation skills is to check with local authorities on the road and track conditions for the area you're going into prior to leaving. Yeah, actually, Humphreys track is one of the ones we're going on. It's okay. Oh, good. No problem with us going through? No, okay. Right, I'll see you when I get there. Ultimately, though, it takes practice, not only in assessing a piece of ground, but in knowing your limitations and capabilities and those of your vehicle.
From Townsville to Rocky, from Roma to Narrabri.
With earlier vehicles, certain rules applied for mud and sand. Second or third gear high-range four-wheel drive for sand, second or third gear low-range four-wheel drive for mud. Today, with more powerful engines, better tyres and suspensions, these are merely guidelines. If you are new to four-wheel driving, and until you build your skills and knowledge, stick to the proven methods. Then experiment, but use caution. There's one golden rule for mud, and that is never drive through it unless there's absolutely no alternative. That means don't play in it. If there's no way around the mud and you have to go through, stop the vehicle, get out, before you venture in, have a good look around and decide the best route through. Driving in mud requires similar techniques to those required for sand, the difference being that in mud, higher engine torque is usually needed. For that reason, normally, second or third gear low range is selected. If possible, stick to the high ground. It's usually harder there. If that's not possible, and there are existing ruts, use them, checking first that they're not too deep for your vehicle. Always try not to create more ruts than already exist. If the existing ruts are too deep, try straddling them. This requires caution and good driving skills. Make sure the ground between the ruts is relatively firm also. When using existing ruts and you begin to lose traction, don't try to overcome the problem by increasing throttle pressure. That will usually give the opposite effect to that which is desired. Instead, try easing off the throttle momentarily whilst turning the front wheels from side to side. Then gradually reapply the throttle. In some cases, this action will allow the sidewall tread on the tyre to gain traction on the rut walls. If you do become bogged, then rocking the vehicle by alternatively engaging first, then reverse gears momentarily with light throttle applications can often help. It does so by packing down the surface under the tyres and forming small ramps in front of and behind the wheels. If successful, you'll then be able to drive out unassisted. Keep one thing in mind with mud: if you can't walk on it, your vehicle will not drive on it. One of the great teachers for any four-wheel driver is driving on sand. One of the important aspects of driving on sand, however, is tyre pressures. On hard-packed sand, for instance, you may be able to drive the vehicle with normal road tyre pressures. On soft-packed sand, however, it can be considerably different. You may need to lower the tyres down to as low as 70 kilopascals, but never lower. 70 kilopascals, by the way, relates to about 10 psi. If you're not sure about the area you're driving into, try to ask a local. They always have the local knowledge. One such person is a fellow by the name of Ray Muddle, who's here with us today, and Ray's from the Hunter Region Four-Wheel Drive Council. Ray, what are some of the things that you found that people do wrong when they come into this area for the first time?
Not reducing tyre pressures, Graham, would be the most important thing that people don't do. Reducing tyre pressures before any attempt is even made to drive onto the dune, onto the white sand. Reducing them down to about 80 kilopascals.
Right.
Mm.
Okay, and some of the tips that you give your people when they're driving in the area?
Yeah. Well, reducing tyre pressures, of course, is so very important before any attempt is made to drive in the sand. Following existing tracks is very important.
Why is that, Ray?
Well, because the sand is a little more hard-packed, and so it's not quite as difficult to negotiate. And also, then someone else has driven there, so there are no real hidden obstacles, and that makes it a little more safe to do so. It makes it a little more safe to use a bit more momentum, Graham, and momentum is so very important in negotiating up a sand dune.
So not too fast and not too slow.
Yeah, just picking a speed that's going to keep the vehicle mobile, picking the power band on the vehicle, picking the right gear, and being able to maintain revs and enough momentum so that the back wheels don't have to start to claw at the sand, because they'll just bury down very, very quickly.
I guess from what you're saying from that is that people should be aware that when you're going up a sand dune, that the back wheels are the ones that are doing most of the work.
Yeah, they're doing most of the work, Graham, and if they start to bog down, then it's pointless in trying to continue forward. So the driver should realise that the vehicle is coming to a halt and stop. Usually at that point the vehicle can be driven back down the dune again and another attempt can be made.
Okay, let's say I'm going up this dune and I get bogged. We teach them when they're driving in mud that we can use the first and reverse and rock the vehicle to try and gain traction, and by building little ramps either end of the vehicle. Does that work in sand from your experience?
Not really well in sand, it doesn't, unless it's up a dune or down a dune, and rocking backward and forward can free the vehicle. Right. But if the vehicle is on a fairly level section of sand, then moving backward and forward will cause the vehicle to bury down very quickly and become suspended on the underneath, the undercarriage of the vehicle, make it very hard to recover. So moving backward and forward, in answer to your question, is no, not on sand.
I'm driving on sand, Ray, and I do bog the vehicle. What's the answer to that?
Well, recognising that the vehicle is bogged is the important thing first, Graham. So the vehicle's come to a halt and it's lost traction and it's bogged. Recognise this bog, get out, walk around, have a good look at the vehicle. Usually by digging trenches away from the wheels may allow the vehicle to be able to be driven forward or backwards. But certainly 1 or 2 attempts is all that should be made, because the vehicle will be continuing to bog down. So if the vehicle can't be recovered that way, then producing the old snatch-em strap and rendering the assistance of somebody else that's in the area is the way to go. Yes, that's right. And there's always usually someone around who's willing to hook up on the old snatch-em strap and tow the vehicle out.
On hot days, in most beach situations that I have been involved in, you'll get a heat haze on the beach. How should the people approach that?
Heat haze would be one of the greatest hazards that a driver has to contend with on sand and sand dunes such as here, because it's almost impossible to distinguish the mounds and the hollows in the sand. It all looks flat, and so the temptation is to increase speed and not be able to pick up those little humps and hollows means that the vehicle may get out of control.
So you can find yourself diving over a precipice.
Yes, exactly. A monstrous great cliff of sand, and the vehicle can roll over.
If local knowledge is not available, experiment, but do so with caution. Some other points to keep in mind are, if your route is to be along a beach and that is to be your way back, make sure you allow time for the return journey and be aware of the tide changes. Crisp gear changes are essential on sand if momentum is to be maintained. It takes practice, and that should be your first concern. Normally, the use of brakes is not required in sand driving. In most cases, a control stop can be achieved by releasing pressure on the throttle. The friction between sand and tyres will do the rest. Sudden or hard braking should be avoided, as this usually causes a rapid build-up of sand in front of the wheels, destroying momentum. Gradual turns on sand achieve the best results. If a turn is necessary, do so by turning down the beach towards the waterline, where the harder sand lies. Planning ahead will help eliminate the need for uphill turns into the softer sand. With tyre pressures lowered, sharp turns should be avoided, as this may cause the tyre to separate from the rim. When using existing wheel ruts, allow the front wheels to find their own path and don't wrestle with the steering wheel. Make sure, though, that you remain in control at all times. Unless you are very experienced, steep downhill sand dunes should not be attempted. They require exceptional control and exacting lines. Extended periods of sand driving may cause a rapid build-up of temperature in driveline oils and components. You can reduce this possibility by avoiding sustained periods of this activity. You should also make regular checks of your vehicle's air intake system for sand. Finally, develop the habit of reinflating your tyres as soon as possible after any sand driving activity. Failure to do so may affect overall handling, braking efficiency, and cause rapid tyre wear.
It may not be the big time, but it's good enough for me. Out along the road again in your good company. Show me a better way to live my life.
It's here, in hill climbs and descents, that a four-wheel driver's true ability show through. His knowledge of his vehicle and his own limitations is essential. Gear selection is very important here, especially so if that slope's surface happens to be loose, wet or slippery. Generally, today's four-wheel drives will handle most uphill climbs in second gear low range. If you're in doubt, select first gear, but don't over-rev the engine. Normally, mid-range, say 2000 RPM in either gear, is quite adequate. The maintenance of traction is the catalyst in any hill climb or descent. The way this is achieved is by selecting the right gear, engine speed and correct footprinting. Attempts at changing gears on any slope, whether up or down, are a no-no. If the slope is very smooth or the surface is of a clay type, a slight throttle increase is often beneficial. Should wheel spin occur, ease off momentarily, then reapply the throttle smoothly. In some instances, traction can be enhanced by turning the front wheels from side to side slightly. Be sure, though, that you maintain directional control. Before you attempt any difficult climb, there's one very important skill that you must learn, and that is the hill reverse start. If your attempt at a climb fails, and there will be times, don't under any circumstances depress the clutch and reverse back down under brakes alone, or try turning around on the slope. If and when traction is lost, release the throttle, allow the engine to stall in gear, and immediately apply the brakes without being savage. Don't panic, don't turn off the ignition key, and above all, don't touch the clutch pedal. Once you're satisfied that the vehicle is held, maintain brake pressure and select reverse gear. In most instances, the use of the clutch to achieve this will not be necessary. Then, slowly release the brakes and feel for the transmission taking the weight of the vehicle in reverse gear. The vehicle will move back slightly. As this occurs, turn the ignition key and restart the engine. What you'll experience is an initial lurch rearwards as the engine restarts, but control will quickly return as the transmission and engine braking take over. Don't touch the clutch. Usually there is no need for throttle here. You can now return to the base of the slope slowly and safely. On extreme slopes, for further control over the rate of descent, use light feathering applications of the brakes. Heavy applications will usually result in skiddy and a loss of traction. When descending any very steep slope, use first gear low range. Why first when second was used going up? Because first offers much greater control during descents due to slower wheel speeds and increased engine braking. Lesser slopes can be handled in higher gears. Again though, if you're in doubt, stick to first gear and take your time. If during a descent there is a tendency for the vehicle speed to pick up, light continuous applications of the brakes will give you greater control over your rate of descent. Don't stab at them or apply too much pressure or the tyres will skid and traction will be lost. One of the difficulties that novices to four-wheel driving experience when descending a steep slope for the first time is fighting the urge to apply the clutch or the brake or both whenever there's a momentary loss of traction. Now, apart from light brake applications, which we call feathering as you've learnt before, hard brake applications during any descent are an absolute no-no. What you should be doing is allowing the engine and the transmission to do the bulk of the work. And they will if you've done your homework. It's a good practice when descending, once you move off, to place your left foot well away from the clutch. That will help reduce your tendency to use it. If you do experience a loss of traction during any descent, try not to panic. Instead, try these techniques. During descents, if a skid occurs, ease off the throttle and steer slightly into the direction of the skid. If you have been applying your brakes, maintain the same pressure, but never increase it. An increase in braking pressure may result in wheel lockup and further enhance the slide. Once you've regained traction, slowly resume your original course. One of the most important aspects of any climb or descent is the line you take. If a reasonably straight line cannot be taken, it may be better and safer to choose another route. Once you're committed, there may be no turning back. No matter how experienced you become, or how experienced you are, every time you come across an obstacle, even if you're familiar with it, don't plunge in. Stop your vehicle, get out, and have a good look around. Thoroughly assess the situation. You just never know what's happened in that area since you were last there.
From Tabo to Denny to Wagga and Gundagai, you can't name a town that I won't do. Make sure you keep it free when I come through.
You may well have promised yourself never to wet the wheels of your vehicle in anything deeper than a teaspoon. Problem is, in this big country, there are places where you will have to reappraise that thinking. Heavy rainfall in the catchment areas of streams just like this can cause a quiet stream to suddenly become a raging torrent. If that happens, and it happens while you're in it, there's not a lot you can do about it, but you need to be prepared. Generally, there are two types of water crossings, and I've classified them this way. Wading, where the depth of water is no higher than the centre of your vehicle's wheels, and fording, where the depth of water is above centre wheel height. There will be times when you experience a combination of both types in the one crossing. No matter what the type of crossing, always thoroughly assess it before you dive in. Walking over the crossing will give you a great deal of useful information. It will tell you how deep the water is and whether the bottom is sandy, soft or rocky. When you assess that crossing, it's a good practice to walk over one side where one set of wheels will travel and return on the other side where the opposite set will go. That will alert you to any hidden obstacles like large rocks, hidden logs or unsighted holes. In addition, it will give you knowledge of any usable high ground. Remember though, it's the same here as it was for mud or sand. If you can't walk on it, you cannot expect your vehicle to drive on it. If you are assessing a crossing in the far north regions of this great country of ours, be mindful of the fact that crocodiles inhabit many waters there. Many drivers pay a great deal of attention to the entry point of a crossing and too little to the exit. With some, once you're in, you're committed, and if you haven't selected an achievable exit, it'll all be too late. By paying attention to detail during your assessment, you'll gain the big picture. If your trip or excursion involves any water crossings, always prepare for the worst. That means, before you leave, check all wiring harnesses for bare wires, etc. Check ignition systems. Check axle and transmission breathers for security of fitting and adequate height. If your vehicle is not fitted with axle and transmission breather tubes to raise the height of the breathers, be aware when a warm axle housing comes into contact with cold water, the sudden temperature change can cause water to be drawn in, and that will contaminate the oil. Raising the height of engine air intakes by fitting snorkels is another worthwhile consideration. The one seen here is a Safari brand supplied by Luxton's four-wheel drive equipment in Melbourne. On arrival at a crossing, depending on the depth, it may be necessary to waterproof such things as ignition systems and air vents. As a rule, but especially if you're on your own or the current is strong, never attempt crossings which are above headlamp height. As in any four-wheel drive activity, with water crossings, it's safer to have another vehicle accompany you. You never know when you'll need assistance. There should never be more than one vehicle on the crossing at a time. Entrance angle and speed are very important. Select a gear and throttle application which provides a steady speed. A good pace for most crossings is around 10 to 15 kilometres per hour. On entry, ease in steadily and gradually build momentum. Keep engine revs up and don't ease off. Once you're in, don't try changing gears and don't stop. If you do either, chances are that's where you'll stay. For deep water crossings, that speed can be accommodated nicely in first or second gear low range. It will also assist in creating that all-important bow wave. And the bow wave is an essential ingredient for success. It restricts water entry by creating a draft down each side and under the vehicle. Therefore, less chance of water affecting electrical components. The right momentum is critical. Where water depth is above mid-grill height, it's often a good idea to fit a blind. A blind can be anything from a Hessian bag to a sheet of plastic. Its purpose is to further restrict the entry of water through the radiator, which can result from increased pressure in deep water. When negotiating the exit from the crossing, there are a couple of things to keep in mind. Normally, low-level crossings don't prove too much of a problem, unless, of course, you have a steep bank to negotiate. But it's fairly easy to increase momentum prior to exit. With deep water crossing, it's a little different. Increase the speed too early and you swamp the engine. Too late and your exit may fail. The idea is to time your increase in speed with the point at which your bonnet begins to rise out of the water. That increase in momentum should be gradual but constant. Once you've completed every crossing, don't forget to check your brakes. You may need them sooner than you think. If they don't function correctly, drive forward a short distance in low gear, apply medium throttle and light brake pressure. This will disperse any water trapped. Then recheck their operation. If they're okay, it's safe to continue.
Show me a better way to spend my days. Show me a better way to see this land.
Alpine areas in Australia are confined to southern New South Wales and northeastern Victoria. Because of this and the fact that access to many parts of the Alpine region is restricted during the winter months, many of us will never have the opportunity to do any real snow driving. If you intend visiting the snow, however, or the Alpine regions, there are still some things that you need to consider, even if snow driving is not available. Here are a few things you should do before you set off, during your trip and when you arrive. Make sure your vehicle's cooling system has antifreeze added. Be sure your vehicle's battery and charging system are in good condition. Check with your local garage as to whether the grade of oil your vehicle's engine has in it is suitable for Alpine areas. Add a cupful of metho to the windscreen washer bottle to prevent tubes and nozzles from freezing up. Check your windscreen wipers for operation and blade condition. Make sure your tyres are in good condition and have sufficient tread. Make sure your vehicle is mechanically sound. Wear suitably warm, water-repellent clothing. Take at least one change of clothes, even if you're only intending a one-day trip. Carry snow chains with you and fit them as directed. Once you enter the Alpine area, drive with caution, especially when crossing bridges, driving through road cuttings, and areas where trees overhang the road. These are areas where ice remains for some time during the morning and reforms quickly during the afternoon. Approach them with caution. If you experience a skid due to ice on the road, avoid applying the brakes hard. That will only enhance the skid. The best method is to avoid the problem by driving to suit the conditions. When you've arrived and parked your vehicle, especially overnight, observe the following. Park your vehicle in gear with the handbrake off. If left on overnight, they can freeze solid, leaving the vehicle immobilised. Until recently, the accepted practice with windscreen wipers was to move the blades away from the windscreen overnight. Most park officials these days say it's not such a good idea. Heavy snow collecting on the arms can cause far more to be replaced than the blades. And try to leave your vehicle with as much fuel in the tank as possible. Condensation forms in partially full tanks, and that can cause problems with engine operation. Although your four-wheel drive can cope far better with snow than any two-wheel drive can, in the alpine regions of Australia, it is compulsory that you carry chains and fit them as directed, and you must know how to fit them. If directed to fit chains, stop where it is safe to do so, where you are plainly visible to other road users. In your four-wheel drive, if you have a four-wheel drive range selected and the hubs engaged, chains are fitted to the front wheels. By doing this, traction is improved and steering stability is improved. If the going gets tough and you have a second set, fit them to the rear wheels. Remember, after you've fitted chains, the vehicle's turning circle will be reduced. If you turn too sharply, damage can be sustained to the underbody. After you've travelled a short distance with the chains fitted, make sure you stop and check them for security of fitting. Damage to brake lines or steering components may result if they work loose. If you're still on a fairly firm surface after fitting the chains and experience steering vibrations and noise, don't be alarmed. That's normal, and provided you keep your speed under 40 kilometres an hour, you'll be okay. The trick in snow driving, as with most types of four-wheel driving, is gaining and maintaining traction. Once in the white stuff, with your chains fitted, light snow can be handled quite adequately in second or third gear high range, depending on your vehicle type. Deep snow, however, will usually demand that you use low range. If you are immobilised in deep snow, try using the rocking technique described in the mud section to forge those ramps. But don't forget to have your shovel handy, just in case. There's nothing worse than trying to clear snow from underneath the vehicle by hand. If the going gets really tough, traction can be further enhanced by lowering tyre pressures a little as for sand driving. If you are unfamiliar with an area or come across an obstacle, stop and check it out on foot. This way you will reduce the chances of surprises. As with sand, when driving in snow, try to stick to existing vehicle tracks. If you're doing a lot of snow driving, make regular checks for build-up of snow under the bonnet and around steering components. It can have a detrimental effect. When chains are no longer required, remove them as soon as possible and wipe them clean before stowing them away.
Every night a new town, making some brand new friends. When I return, I hope to see you all again. Show me a better way.
The array of recovery equipment available to you today can be absolutely mind-boggling. Many newcomers to four-wheel driving for the first time experience difficulty in separating the nice-to-haves from the must-haves. In reality, it's up to you to decide what your requirements are. Where are you going? What type of terrain will you cover? Or are you going on an extended trip? When it's all boiled down, the final decision is yours. But we've got a few tips for you now on what we believe your basic recovery kit should consist of. Now, apart from the standard toolkit that comes with the vehicle and the standard jack, you'll find a steel base plate, such as you see here, a very useful item. Why? Quite simply because it serves to spread the load when you're using the jack on uneven or soft ground. Your kit should also include a good quality tow chain, a selection of bow and D shackles, such as you see here, and or a good quality tow strap. If there's a need for you to join two or more chains together, then those connections should be done via the use of D shackles. Bow shackles, by the way, are generally used when connecting tow straps to the various tow points on the vehicles. And by the way, make sure that you do connect them to the tow points. If there's a need for you to make an extension out of two or more tow straps, then those connections should be made, or can be made, via the use of a simple piece of dowel, such as you see here. And that's simply done by placing the dowel in it like that. And you'd be amazed how much strength that has and how much weight it'll carry. Never, ever tie knots in tow straps. Why? Quite simply, once you put the weight of the vehicle on it, you'll have a devil of a time getting the knot undone, and chances are you'll damage the strap anyway. With chains, make sure they're in good conditions before they're used. When buying a tow chain, be careful to ensure that the safe working load of the chain is suitable for your vehicle and its weight. Tow chains should never be subjected to sudden loadings, as this can severely damage the links, rendering the chain useless. If you intend doing any mud, sand or snow driving, and believe me, sooner or later you will, then the purchase of a Snatchem strap will probably be a very good investment. They come in several lengths and several ratings, and they are invaluable for extracting a bogged vehicle. In operation, they act much like a giant rubber band. One end of the strap is fitted to the bogged vehicle, allowing as much slack as possible. The other end of the strap is now fitted to the vehicle which will do the towing. By the way, don't make the connection to either vehicle on suspension or steering components, as this will result in damage. The idea is for the driver of the towing vehicle to move off in second or third gear, building momentum as quickly as possible. As the strap becomes taut and the load applied, it will stretch slightly and an inertia is introduced into it. That inertia in the strap is transferred to the bogged vehicle and it is literally snatched from its demise. In the interests of safety, it's never a good idea to join two Snatchem straps together by using D or bow shackles. In any winching operation, if a tree is to be used as an anchor point, then a tree protector strap in your kit is essential. They're used to wrap around the trunk, like you see here, and protect the tree from the possibility of ring barking. When selecting that tree as an anchor point, firstly make sure it's of sufficient diameter to support the load. Secondly, make sure that it's firmly rooted. If it's growing in soft or loose ground, choose another. The ends of the protector strap should be connected via the use of a bow shackle. You should include at least one shovel as part of your kit. Without a shovel on board, you're going to find digging trenches in front of and the rear of wheels extremely difficult. Similarly, you'll find removing dirt or sand or snow away from diff centres in a bog situation even more arduous. Whilst it's not absolutely essential, the purchase of a high-lift jack as part of your kit can be a very worthwhile thought. Aside from offering a much higher lift than a normal jack in wheel-changing operations, they can be a very useful recovery tool as well. When you use a high-lift jack, be conscious of the fact that because of its small base plate, extreme caution is needed. The more weight applied and the higher it lifts, the more unstable it is likely to become. One other piece of gear that you should give some thought to including in your kit is a set of snow chains. All right, so you say to me, but I live in Queensland. Why would I need a set of snow chains? That's ridiculous. Well, it's not, because snow chains, apart from aiding in traction gaining in snow, will also aid in traction gaining in sand, when you're negotiating mud, or you have a need to negotiate a very steep hill climb. The range of vehicle-mounted winches today is just too immense for us to be able to cover during this program. Time doesn't permit. All we want to do really is make you aware that there are alternatives to having a vehicle-mounted winch, which in most cases today are very expensive. One of those alternatives is to purchase yourself a portable winch, and it will get you out of most problems. Portable winches come in various sizes and capacities. They have a couple of advantages over vehicle-mounted winches. They can be used, for instance, from either end of the vehicle or from either side. Another advantage of the portable winch is the fact that, used in this fashion, it can be used as a lifting device with a limited lifting capacity, I might add. In operation, it's quite simple. The rope is threaded through the winch, and when the handle is moved in this direction, one set of jaws holds the rope. When the handle is moved back in the opposite direction, as you've seen then, the rope moves through the winch. It's slow, but it does the job, and it's better than having nothing. Okay, so you've finally got out and bought all this equipment, you've put it in the back of the vehicle, and it's spreading out all over the place, making a damn mess. Well, it doesn't have to be. There are bags such as this, which is called an accessory bag, which has little compartments inside for you to store all of those various pieces of equipment. When it's all in place, you simply fold the bag up and it's all nice and neat and tidy. And finally, the gear that you've seen here today on display was provided for our use by John Hossack of Albury Four-Wheel Drive and Camping Gear.
Foremost in the mind of all off-roaders should be safety. Safety for themselves, for their passengers, but also for the environment. Today, the environment is everybody's responsibility. With me is Ted Stabb from the Department of Conservation and Environment. Ted, what's your position with the department?
I'm a planning officer for recreation and conservation in the North East region.
Right. Have you got some tips for people who are heading off-road, off the bitumen into the bush, with regards to looking after themselves and the bush around them when they're travelling through?
Well, yes, I'd ask them to be well equipped
Right.
and to know where they're going,
Mhm.
to have a map, to do some checking before they go as to the roads and their condition, as to seasonal closures.
Yeah, be prepared before they
That's
go, know where they're
precisely it.
going. Right. Who can they contact before they go to make sure that all the places where they're going are open at that particular time of year?
Well, the local land management authority, I guess, be it the National
Right.
Park Ranger or in our
Right.
case the local office of the Department of Conservation and Environment,
Yes.
the Lands Department or whoever looks after the area.
What does the driver have to do if they come across tracks which do have closure signs on them?
Well, we'd certainly want people to respect the sign and realise that it's there for a purpose.
And you can be penalised quite severely if you do not take notice of the signs that are there and go through anyway.
Yes, seasonal road closures or management vehicles only tracks are backed up by legislation, and depending exactly where you are and what the land tenure is and what state you're in, you might be looking at imprisonment or a hefty fine of a couple of $1,000.
What's the department found generally with drivers acting irresponsibly?
Well, I guess there's damage to roads, and that can result in quite severe erosion. There's also the safety aspect, apart from the cost to the government departments of repairs.
So basically, if we want to keep the roads open for the generations to come, we should leave it the way we find it.
Well, yes, that's an important point.
How can the four-wheel drive community be of assistance to the department?
Well, when they're on a trip, there's a number of things that they can do. If they come to sections of road that have been damaged, they can report them so that we'll be able to do something about them. If there are trees over the road that they can handle, cut them off. If there's drainage problems that they can cure fairly easily, well, it would certainly help that they did something about that. I guess in general terms too, if they have doubts, need advice, come to us, phone up the ranger rather than in fact running into trouble and making it harder for everyone.
What about rubbish?
I guess the code of ethics for minimal impact on the environment is to take out what you bring in with you, and if you find someone else's rubbish, do
You
the right
take
thing
that
and
too.
take it.
The irresponsible ways of a few has contributed to the closure of many areas previously open to the general public. The Australian National Four-Wheel Drive Council has a code of ethics which their members must observe. All four-wheel drivers should adopt this code, but it only works and it's only valuable if it's observed. By now you will have discovered successful operation of a four-wheel drive is not as simple as jumping in, turning the key and heading off to the bush. Here you have seen demonstrated the basic skills and techniques you must develop to achieve safe, responsible and successful operation of your vehicle. That takes a great deal of practice and a caring attitude. Care for not only yourself, but for your family, others and the environment. It must be emphasised that having viewed this video does not mean you're now ready for that round Australia trip. That requires strict planning and attention to detail. In the meantime, however, good luck, keep practicing and enjoy your driving.